country. I know that starting in this Washington, we're getting ready to terrify the Washington that I live in. So, I think the question for us here in Seattle and around the country is how do we do the same thing? Start to create a crisis. And I just want to give maybe a couple rules for it. So the first one is it going to happen in one day? No. One of the things that, like, there's a difference between a one-day demonstration and going on strike for a week, right? And what a lot of us are talking about more and more is instead of one-day demonstrations where we hear speeches, day after day with increasing intensity, we have to do things that really make them uncomfortable, that bring the fight to them. That second, we have to be clear who the bad guys are, and we have to start naming them by name. Like, I think sometimes, you know, on their side, they have no problem naming us. Like, Glenn Beck, he did an entire show about me. He wrote on the board, evil. Seriously. He wrote evil, and then he did this thing, the definition of evil. Then he wrote economic terrorist, and he did all this. And then he said, who is that Stephen Lerner? And so I don't watch Glenn Beck, I didn't know anything about it, but then when the death threats started coming in, I said, aha. But in all seriousness, they name the enemy, and it's intense. So I think we ought to think about, like, I know you guys are doing a lot of stuff on JP Morgan Chase. Who runs that company? Anybody know his name? Say it again. Isn't that the perfect name for a banker, Diamond? But it's one thing if we say JP Morgan Chase crashed the economy. It's another thing if we say Jamie Dimon, who makes $20 million a year, who is involved in the opera and all these philanthropies, who thinks he's a nice guy, that he's destroying our lives. So I think, one, we need to move to multi-day. Two, we got to be clear on the human beings that are bad. And then three, on the thing that's so exciting to hear you say, when you look at every great movement in history, from the abolitionists to the suffragettes, to the auto workers that seized the auto factories, to the civil rights movement, to the immigrant rights movement, everywhere in the world, what do they all have in common? People willing to march in mass and people willing to go to jail in greater and greater numbers. And if we really believe that the richest, most powerful people in the world, that their goal is to destroy us, then there's an urgency that our actions and our words and the crisis all fit together. The question here is we've started getting arrested, we've started taking risks, but how do we take it to the next level so we start winning? And I think the thing that keeps occurring to me is, do we have a crisis for all of us? Yeah. We're facing a crisis. No jobs, no homes, no income. But do the people at the top, the super rich, are they facing a crisis? No. I just want to take a second to think about this. So, if we're in a crisis and they're not, is there any problem for them? No. Is there any reason? That's good. Is there any reason anything should change? Like, they have no incentive to change if it's not a crisis for them, but it's a crisis for us. You follow where I'm going with this? So it feels like we've queued it up, but our job now is, the next stage of the campaign is, how do we make a crisis for them? How do we make it so that every morning when they wake up, they say, this is terrible? How do we make it that people don't want to go to their fundraisers because we're always there and they don't even associate with them? How do we make it that the kids look at them and say, Daddy, Daddy, are we really that bad? How do we make it that politicians don't even want their money because their money is toxic, it's dirty, it's evil? When we did that demonstration, we never really thought about the full implication of this. But when we parked the school buses, it created traffic, and I didn't understand the true dynamics of traffic. And it backed it up so much that guess what did not meet for 4 hours that day? We had no idea. We want to talk about getting people's attention. I got a call from John Sweeney. He's the president at the time. He got the time we were going to do this. And anyway, and Congress literally passed a law making it a felony to block a bridge into Washington. But the key thing about that demonstration was it wasn't just about us, getting arrested. It wasn't just about us having a protest. We brought Washington to a screaming halt. And we actually did it 3 more times. And we shut down the city again and again. And if you look over the history, the entire city ended up being Union. And it's because we took the richest and most powerful people, we took the fight to them, we made them so uncomfortable. We created a crisis for them. So they said, well, maybe there's a better way. And we said, yeah, let's negotiate.
I had a glass of wine and relaxing, and I look at the guy, and he looked kind of okay, and I just happened to say, how are you? And he says, how are you? To make a long story short, he's in the Tea Party. And he starts telling me about unions are the end of the world and blah, blah, blah. So it's 3 hours from Minneapolis. And I'm sitting there, so what do you do? And I'm sitting next to this guy, and he's got like a fold on the side of his face, and he's frothing. And he's going on and on and on, and then I finally said to him, what do you think about the banks? And what do you think he said? I hate them too! It was amazing. And so we then had this discussion where I said, wait a second, why are you mad at the school teacher and you're not mad at the banks? And you can't make this up. He looks at me and he says, maybe we agree more than you think, than I thought. Because I agree that we gave the banks trillions of dollars to rob us is crazy. So, over that flight, I came to the view that when we say it's our moment because some people totally get it. There's some people that are in the middle and they're waiting to be won over. And there's even some people who are completely wrong who are starting to think there's something else cooking there. So I think the key things are to summarize is 1, we have to be willing to confront them more directly. 2, we have to be creative. And then 3, intensity. And we need to look at all the opportunities where they gather. And they're deciding our fate. And we need to expose them because all of that is how we begin to go from symbolic protest to protest that really creates a crisis for them.